Every soul is a candle.
Good evening, everybody. We seem to have started, we got on a roll here with questions, and this is, of course, this Phillip Namanworth, Creative Spirituality. Welcome aboard, and welcome to those asking questions. We are a format for discussion, debate, and in a certain way, it's very scientific and logical, depending on the system you're talking about, okay? You know, if you're arguing Newtonian physics as opposed to Euclidean, and then, relativity, you have different frames of reference. With the Torah, it's a cosmic reference. So the light of the Torah, because it's going to be Hanukkah, so we talk about light. We'll maybe we'll talk about why the image of light is used as a symbol of cosmic energy. And a lot of people, you're enlightened to illuminate. But the power of creation is in a metaphor. It's not the right metaphor, but it's the best one we have, is the same reason we use light as an energy symbol. Well, what's the story with light? The light of the sun is never disconnected from the sun. If you put something between the sun and you won't get the light. The sunlight only has existence because of its distance. It's a contraction from the sun. The closer the ray of sun gets to the sun, it's gone. Is the sunlight in the sun? Is there a ray in there? Because the strength and the power of it is so strong. The Torah itself, God desired to have a world. We can talk about that another time. But he needed to give a way for us to understand something beyond understanding. That interface that helps us hold the light and understand on our level is called the Torah. It's like the USB that you plug in between a higher system and a lower system. It is a higher system that enables you to understand certain concepts. This is not true for other religions or if it is, that's their business and let them live by it. So I just encourage everybody, mitzvah is not just a good deed. Studying Torah is not like just studying another religion. The Torah is not a book. It existed before creation, existed for the sake of the Jewish people. Some people don't like hearing that. And we're here to discuss those issues and how they can change our lives and how we can access the incredible soul power that we have within us that we don't even know is there to fulfill the mission that we have and to unwrap the presence and riches that make us who we are that we don't even know are there. How many times in this class, and even myself, when I first heard some of this stuff, say, I never knew I was studying Hinduism. I heard a lot of this stuff in Buddhism and Hinduism and here and there in esoteric Christianity. I didn't even know we had any of that. Not only did we have any of that, we have everything and something more. So I appreciate your questions. And I would say, let's discuss, if we're interested in getting you a bar mitzvah, we can arrange that. It's never too late. People do it at the wall all the time. You put on tefillin, you give in your Hebrew name, and did you have a bris? Hopefully you had a bris. And even people who haven't had a bris, they do this procedure. So it's never too late because the same God that we worship put you in that position that didn't happen. It's not you decided one day at 2 years old, I don't want to do this or that. So we have to see which way our pathways run. And they all run to a similar place in some way, fulfilling the mission for which we were given to bring light to our corner of the world with our intellect, with our questioning, with our curiosity, with our skepticism. We bring it all and we own it. And we'll talk a little bit about that today as well. So let me welcome everybody else. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Pesach. Hope you're feeling better. Brian. Mordechai. That's your Hebrew name. Mordechai. Mordechai. And Shlomo. Thank you, Shlomo. And so today, an interesting story. The Torah, as we know it, has, depending on how it's counted, there are a number of different ways, 53 or 54 chapters in the five books of Moses. Each one of them has given the name. So we're in the book of Breshis, of the first five books. And the first chapter is called Breshis, in the beginning of God's creating. It makes sense. Second one's called Noach, because it talks about Noah. Third one is called Lech Lecha, because God tells Abraham what to do. And then there's Vayera, where God appears to Abraham. In other words, after he circumcises himself and does certain work on himself, certain things become apparent that could not become apparent before. And then we have Chaya Sarah, and it makes sense, even though it's called the life of Sarah, it's the death of Sarah, so it relates. And then you have Toldos. These are the generations of Isaac, and you get uh, Esau and Jacob, right? All makes sense. You can understand in some level. It's not just because those words are at the beginning of the chapter, but they tell you in essence what the entire chapter is about. And when it seems not to be the essence of the chapter, we have to ask why. Then we have a chapter called Vayetze, because Jacob leaves. He leaves his home and goes out into the world to make a family. Makes sense. He coming back, Vayishlach. He sends messages to Esau. He's trying to get him. And then you have a parsha called Vayeishev, which is this week's parsha. Uh, Vayeshev means settled, means to dwell, it means to be calm and quiet and settled. And this parsha is absolutely had nothing to do with that. Has to do with the sale of Joseph, his brothers selling him, Judah sleeping with Tamar, Joseph in Egypt being sold as a slave, right? Being sold as a slave, being accused falsely and thrown into prison for 10 years and then 2 years more. And then
Dreams.
what?
Dreams.
Oh, yeah. And dreams. Well, dreams could be Yeshev. You could be settled dreams. His dreams, his problems. So you can't just say, well, I understand why this parsha is called Vayeshev. One thing you can understand is, like everything else in the Torah, it's given the name to provoke us to ask the questions. Next week's parsha is called, this is Vayeshev, and then Miketz is at the end of his prison term, and that makes it Vayigash, where Judah draws close to Joseph, and then Vayechi about Jacob. Each one of them makes sense, except saying this is settled. We have the same kind of thing happening in Parshas Chaya Sarah. Why do I call it the life of Sarah when she's gone? And not only that, Rashi's the opening of Chaya Sarah says Chaya Sarah was 100 years and 20 years and 7 years, and Rashi comments that to tell you that when it's at 100 she was as nice and wonderful and beautiful and as lively as at 20. At 20 she was as innocent as 7, and she was always happy. But if you trace her life, it was miserable. She couldn't have children. You see this a lot in the Torah. She couldn't have children. She's being schlepped all around. Pharaoh grabs her. So the question that the Torah wants you to ask is, wake up. Ask the questions. What's going on? And there are many other cases where this kind of thing happens. We have Rabbi Akiva Omer, V'ahavta l'reacha kamo. Um, okay, I'm forgetting this, but there's a saying, everything that happens for the good, and it's not said, Gam Zula Tova. He says this is also for the good, meaning something that looks bad. So we have a parsha that's about dwelling. So we're going to have to decide what the word dwelling is. When you have the word yeshiva or Vayeishev, it means that something should be settled within you. Now, you can't tell me that once his son was missing, that Jacob had one day of being settled. He was gone for 22 years. He didn't see him. He was gone for, a long time. The same amount of time that he left home is the same amount of time that Joseph was gone. So, what's doing? I'm asking a very logical question, am I not? We learned that in the beginning of the Torah. It starts with a big base. The letter base is bigger. So the obvious question is why? Another question is why does it start with base? Rashi asks, why doesn't it start with the first mitzvah if it's about mitzvahs? So that you get the idea here that wisdom starts with the most obvious things that are right in front of you. And when you learn to accept them, like we do in this in our societies where we accept the worst social media comments and things without asking about them, you wind up in a very, very, very bad place. So the question is, why is this called settle? One of the reasons that Rashi says that all these things happened to Jacob is because he thought that when he got back to Canaan, everything was going to be cool. In other words, he wanted to have like the world to come in this world. And the Medrash says, God said, it's not enough that I'm giving the righteous such a wonderful place after. You have to have it in this world too. It's sort of like, I'll show you. It's not going to happen. But the very fact is that that's the truth of things. He wanted not just to have that spiritual state when he was meditating or anything else. He wanted his whole life to feel settled, no matter what was going on. And Rashi says that heaven said, what's the matter? It's not enough that you're going to come to a place that's going to be like that. In fact, we have a statement in the Talmud that says, "Tzadikim ein lo menucha." Tzaddik, there's no rest. But the fact was, ultimately, he was right. He didn't want just to have moments of higher consciousness and understanding. He wanted to feel settled in the mishigas of life. And this whole chapter shows you what it really means to have a settled life. It means that no matter what is going on, there is a way for you to elevate and live on a certain plane that's not dictated by external situations. Are you suffering from them? Yes. But is the idea that I'm going to live and get through suffering so I'll have some kind of good experience when I die? Absolutely not. We even asked the question, what does it mean to have a sanctified moment? And people give various answers. But the truth is, you're going to have a sanctified moment at any moment that you decide. It's interesting in the book Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who was in the camps, and he came out of there pretty, rough shape, but he came out, how did he survive? He talks about how he survived and how people survived. And he started logotherapy. He said, if a person has meaning, everything is different. They can't take that away from you. So his feeling was the essence of life was the search for meaning. In other words, you can't enslave my mind. You can make me work as much as you want. But if I'm thinking somewhere else, in some way, that's a salvation for me. So what we try to do here is to add to our emotional and intellectual vocabularies so they're elevated from intellect to wisdom. Because intellect and information is not the same thing as wisdom. And just being able to feel something is not the same thing as having elevated emotions. We're trying to refine them. And how do we do that? That's what the Torah does. It's trying to get you to look at yourself from the viewpoint of the Creator who made you. You want to know what's wrong with your car? You have a Lamborghini, you go to a Lamborghini maker, right? How did you make this thing? Did you file down the camshafts? What did you do here? God says, here's how you're made. And what's the first thing God tells us? You are made in the Tselem Elohim. You are made in the image of heaven. Every single person is made in the image of heaven. You are not the result of whatever happened in your home growing up. Yes, those things affect you, but that's not who you are. I posted this last couple of weeks in Facebook, and it was very simple, just an AI picture of me that, I don't know, Shlomo made or somebody. And it just says, always remember, you matter. And someone wrote back, I don't. Because we have such strict um, particularities. We think if I did something, I never can return from it. I'm always going to be guilty of it. I can't become back who I was. I wasn't bar mitzvah. I can never be bar mitzvah. The Torah constantly tells you that based on before the Torah was even created, was something called teshuvah, which means return. Return to God's idea of how you are, because that's how heaven sees us. In the same way, on Rosh Hashanah, we talk about forgiveness and making amends. God doesn't consider us the same way that we treat each other. If someone does you wrong 3 times, you'll never talk to him again. We are constantly, every day, doing stuff that's off the derech. And God forgives us every day. Who's got a radio on or something? Someone got a radio on or something? Please turn. Thank you. It's very different. So we're in Parshat Vayeishev. And what does it really mean to be settled? It means that you have turmoil and trauma in your life. There's nobody who doesn't. In fact, the Jews today are living through a period that was normal in America for a long time. From I don't know, 70 till today, we had a break from the usual kinds of anti-Semitism that permeated the world. We are back in what was normal for the world for those times, what our ancestors always lived through. That they had to hide things half of the time. Sometimes it was worse than others. We were so free until recently. And then somehow, now we're living the way they lived, and we'll see how we consider our own decisions. Okay, so that's Parshas Vayeishev. The absolute ability to make every part of your life revolve around the hub of your soul. Whatever's happening, you can say Gam Tzulatova, or maybe you don't want to say that. Maybe you can't. We always say that if you just add into the equation that whatever's happening to me, Hashem made it happen. It may not take away the pain, but it adds in that quality of how you were created. When a person can own every part of their life as symptomatic of a developed state of being at one with the universe, then you make this world a home for God. God created the material world so it would hide. The word olam, world, is similar to the word helam, which means hidden. In other words, physical things hide spirituality. Our job is to reveal the sparks that are hidden in each thing. It's not like, oh, I know I'm going to deal with these creepy people and I'm going to find something good. You may not find anything good in them, but the job is to face them on your terms and on heaven's terms and to make them part of your life. So to have a parsha, for those who came in a little late, we were saying that all the parshas are named. They're not just named after the first couple of words. Each name of every parsha has a meaning for the entire parsha. The beginning and end of a parsha are more closely related than what came before or after, usually. But the parshas Vayeishev, which means settled or dwelled or relaxed in one's being, has nothing to do with having your son sold by his brothers, being lied to by them, Joseph being sold, dreams, Yehuda and guy sleeping, Yehuda sleeping with his daughter-in-law to bring Mashiach, um, Joseph being sold into Egypt, his problems there, getting thrown in jail. Tell me what's settled about that. And of course, we've discussed, and I'll reiterate, it's stated that way to make you think. I'll put it so far as to say every single line in the Torah is controversial. There's not anything that isn't. And as the Rambam says, every single line in the Torah has the same holiness, where it says Timnah was a concubine, the daughter of Eliphaz, the daughter of Vayeishev, is the same on some level as Shema Yisrael, in terms of that it's from the Holy Torah. And we tried to address that by saying that the Torah is the cosmological interface between a non-existential reality from which we descend and our reality. To come to a statement that someone walked high above man. Mankind is a very, very high of spirituality. It's the level of the name Havaya. In the animal soul comes from in the chariot. If you read in Ezekiel, had four different types of an eagle, a lion, a man, and an ox. From the aspect of the ox comes the animal soul, and from the aspect of the man comes something higher. But that's the name Hashem. The name of God is as close as we can get to praising the reality of God, except for doing mitzvahs. In other words, Hashem is a name that doesn't get conjugated. If you take the name Elohim, you get it Keel, Eloka, Elokechem, right? You can conjugate it because it's within nature. The name Hashem comes from the first place where the radiance of God's cosmic energy, so to speak, moves into a constricted form to create the world. Now, how are we ever supposed to relate to that? Well, the system is set up by Hashem is he's given us tons of physical mitzvahs. A mitzvah is not just a good deed, it's a way of connecting to Hashem. Because the commander is unite with the commander by doing his will. Many people think, oh, things are much better when I do them because I want to do them. Yeah, I did it. I'm a much better person because I had the will to do it. Judaism teaches no, it's the highest thing is to do it because Hashem said it. Because that's connected to your soul. Now, even on the level that we study here, we study Torah. What does studying Torah affect? Studying Torah draws a shefa, a light, into your mind and your thought, but it doesn't go throughout your whole body. So though it's elevating, the higher form is a mitzvah, because a mitzvah involves a lower spiritual aspect of the material world. And when you elevate that because you're listening to the ratzon, the will of Hashem, you reach a place beyond the light of the first creation. It's called beyond the tzimtzum. Now, all of this is very confusing, but we're talking about how do we connect with things that are higher than us. And many of us seem to think that, good deeds, everybody does good deeds. It doesn't matter. I do it for my reason. Some do it because God tells them. That's not the point. The point is to be connected to yourself. To be connected to yourself on any level, any movement you make helps connect you to other people, and which helps connect you to God, because they're basically all three the same thing. It says God honors those who honors others. Pirkei Avot. In other words, we live in a place of oneness, and certain things that we do reveal that oneness and the nature of that oneness, which is not oneness as we know it. We could say monotheistic. There's only one God. Do we mean that is that what monotheism really means? There's only one God. There's not 10 or 20. Or does it mean there's nothing? Ein od milvado. There's nothing else but oneness. And when you connect on your level and start putting a pushka in your house, or for the first time wearing a yarmulke, or going to shul, you reveal the oneness of the entire universe. Now, I want to make a jump cut, so to speak. This Tuesday was the Yud Tes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, which is called the Rosh Hashanah of Chabad Hasidus. It was the day when the Alter Rebbe, after 53 days in jail, was freed from prison. And if that hadn't happened, and without the Alter Rebbe and the Maggid of Mezrich and the Baal Shem Tov, I wouldn't be sitting here. We wouldn't be sitting here, because that's where I got it all from. Not to say there's not other places to get it from. But he was thrown in jail on false charges, but he understood something. He understood that there was a kitrug. In other words, there was a complaint in heaven that the Alter Rebbe was revealing too much spirituality. So when he was in jail, he was visited, so to speak, and you can take this however you want, by the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid of Mezrich. And they told him that's why he was in jail. And he asked, should I stop? And he said, no, permission is given. You may now expand the learning and teaching that you've done about the internal revelations of Judaism. And it's in the whole world, and spread it. And so he was let out of jail. And what does that mean, the internal? In the month of Sivan, which is the third month from Nisan, we were given the Torah. It's the Nigla. We were given the revealed Torah. If you count 3 months from Rosh Hashanah, which is Kislev, we were given, this month is called the month of Panimius HaTorah, the revelation of the inner meaning. In other words, you go to a place you don't know anything, and the first thing they tell you is, eat kosher, don't work Shabbos, do this and this. They give you all this outside stuff, and you run away, or whatever. That's one level, or you're into it and you like it. But what about, why is this? What's the why? Science tells us the what. Torah tells us the why. String theory, vibrating strings in the universe, black holes, all of this stuff. The beginning of the Zohar says, in the beginning there was a dark lamp. Talk about black holes. The very beginning of creation, there was a dark lamp. A lamp is not dark. A lamp is light, but there was a dark lamp. So in some way, all of us are searching for something. We just want to feel, however we put it, more at home with our spirituality, a way to process it, a way to use it in our normal life. I consider my mission very simply as keeping God in the conversation. Doesn't mean beating people over the head with it. It just means that that element has to be part of everything we do, or it's missing a severe and a very important element. It's like doing something really nice for a friend a lot, right? But they're mad at you. You buy them roses every week. Why are they mad? Because turns out they hate roses. You want to do what you think is right, but you didn't ask the receiver. Hashem tells you this works and this does not work. To say that something is mutter or usr, forbidden or permitted. Permitted means that the spark of creation in it is able to be revealed. Usr means that it cannot be revealed. In other words, you cannot eat non-kosher food and have that spark in the food revealed. If it's for pekuach nefesh, maybe yes. It just doesn't reveal itself. So the Torah gives you a guideline. And from all the people I know, especially the people here, we're all so different that we try to take these concepts, and they're wonderful concepts, and make them work in our own life. And how do we do that? By questioning. David opened up by a questioning today. It's wonderful. What do we do with the Seder? It's mostly about questions. It's not about answering. We don't answer the 4 questions at the Seder. Does anybody know that? We don't really, we answer 2, I think. The thing is to question. Now, there's a problem, though. To question in Hebrew is terutz, but in Yiddish it's terutz. The same word means an excuse. Some of us use our questioning as a back door to avoid facing difficult stuff. There's always a but. Someone, perhaps he's going a lot of dating, and he's always got a huge shopping list. There's the but. Yeah, I like her, but the number 6 she doesn't do. She has blue eyes instead of brown eyes. And yet, what does the Torah tell us? Yitzhak, when he meets Rivka, he brings her into the house. He marries her. Things are going on for a while. Then he loves her. The Torah says you got to get through a lot of layers to connect with people. Excuse me. So this 3rd month of Hanukkah and a lot of Hasidic holidays, the freeing of the Alter Rebbe from prison, and this is actually the Rosh Hashanah of Hasidus. We start reading the Tanya over again and Hayom Yom. And Hasidus is Panimius HaTorah. Some people confuse it with like Zohar and stuff. Hasidus shines a light on every aspect of learning and living. We have something called the Pardes, Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod. It is a tractate, Chagiga, which talks about 4 sages went into the garden, which is Pardes, which is another way of saying they had a deep spiritual experience. One went crazy, one died, one became an apostate, and one Sheniknas v'sholem v'yetze v'sholem. He entered in peace and came out in peace. 4 levels. What does that mean? It means Vayetze Yaakov Be'er-Sheva Harana. Jacob left Beer-Sheva to go to Harana. That's the Peshat. The simple meaning. Is it true? Yeah. Then there's Remez. What's a Remez? It's sort of, it hints at something else. Beersheba is the well of 7. It's a very holy place. Harana Af means a very angry place. In other words, he left the holy place and went to a place where it's all hidden. And then there's Durush. And we could say that at that level, Yaakov, who's the aspect of Tiferes, left the safety of holy places to go into a hostile environment to build a holy family, because that's the only place he could do it. And then the sod is that each one of us is going to run into complications and challenges in our life and probably going to get the best benefit from facing those challenges. So all those existences exist at the same time. So there's many levels of interpretation. There are some people study Musar, which means every pasuk is delivered with a hint towards character traits. So what's Hasidus? It's not so. Is it Sod? Is it Kabbalah? Is it? It's not all of them, and it's all of them. What it does is it shines a light on whatever level you're at. To give an example of the previous Rebbe was in Europe, and a bunch of Orthodox rabbis came to see him in a hotel. And they said to him, Rebbe, just with all due respect, what is this Hasidus compared to, the rest of Judaism? And he says, look over there, tell me what you see. They said, well, we see a marble pillar holding up the ceiling and the wall. He said, okay, so let's get closer. He gets closer and he shows them where all the crevices are, where things were put together, how it was built, how it was repaired. He says, that's Hasidus. You get closer to see the inner workings of reality. And that's this month. And that's, in a way, the image of light. As we said before, light is part of the sun. It's always connected to the sun. If Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, if God, so to speak, is radiating the sun, we only exist because we're part of the sun's rays. When a human being creates something, that thing has an existence. If you make a painting or if you build something, once you let go of it, it's there. A human being is always attached to Hashem. If Hashem should, so to speak, stop speaking, we'll disappear. Because the energy from that light, as a form of energy, is always permeating all of creation. This is one of the reasons why it's used as as the symbol of spirituality. We call darkness the absence of light. There is no absence of light, really. It's a covering. But in the beginning, you would think there was let there be light, but before there was let there be light, what does it say? For V'horetz tohu v'vohu v'hoshek al pnei tehom. In the beginning of creation, everything was chaotic. It was dark. In other words, we couldn't tell what creation was about. We didn't understand what we're here for and why we're here. But first thing God does is he sets forth his mission statement. What's the mission statement of Hashem? Yehi or, let there be light. Where? Amongst the darkness and chaos of our lives. The way we become Vayeishev is that we shine a light of holiness into everything we do and to all the challenges that we have. And this is the month of Hanukkah. Hanukkah is coming up. Hanukkah, they rested on the 25th after the battle on the 24th. It's a very interesting thing. I mean, it was a guerrilla war, as we know, but mostly we celebrate the light. They rededicate the temple. They rededicate the revelation of light, of holiness in life. And they only find this one cruse of oil. What are we to compare the cruse of oil to? I mean, and if they didn't find it, doesn't the law say, Barry would know this, but the law says you can light the menorah if there's nothing else around. You could light with that. You could light it in any of the menorahs. But they waited because they wanted to do it Hider HaMitzvah. They wanted to do it in the best way. But each person, Hanukkah is about the fact that no matter what is destroyed in your life, there is a small cruse of oil within you. That oil is in your soul. It says the soul mamish is connected to God above. How do we know this? We pull it the two-step program. How did Hashem create mankind? First, it says he gathered from the dust of the earth. That's all physical matter, and he made man. He made him all physical. And then it says, Vayipak Bapav Nefesh Chaim. He blew into his nostrils a living soul. It does not say this about any of the animals, birds, or anything else. Man is born with a physical part, and that part wraps up the spiritual part, so it's hidden. The name of the game is how do you make one stronger than the other? Story of Jacob and Esau. There are two countries within you fighting. When one is stronger, the other is weaker. You know that whenever you feel weak on a certain way, you eat the extra 5 pieces of cake. Or, whenever your holy part is, you can get rid of not get rid of, because we use the Yetzer Hara. It says in Kedushin, the whole world was, God created the Yetzer Hara and created the Yetzer Tov the Torah for a tavlin, is that the word? As a spice. And King Solomon says there is huge strength in the strength of an ox. The ox is your animal self. You are given physicality in this world to use it, to purify it, to bring light to this world, to transform the world, to have a Hanukkah, to irradiate your light. And you do that by changing yourself, refining yourself. The Torah is the study of self-refinement. It's brutally honest in a way, and it's not so easy. It asks you to really be totally honest with yourself. And how much of that you can share with others, of course, you have to, you have to measure. And with Hashem, because there is something called tshuva, which means you can return to your original position because you were born Tselem Elokim. You were born in the original state of something higher, and then it gets covered over. And things that happen in childhood leave traumatic events. If a big tree gets a little cut in it, it's not much damage. But if a little baby who hasn't grown into a tree has a lot of scars from it, those grow with it and become part of the tree. And many of us have taken things along the way from the society, from our family, from our own views of world. And that's what Parshas Lech Lecha talks about. Lech Lecha me'artzecha mimoldecha mibeis aviko, lech al eretz asher areka. Leave your subjectivity, leave your socialized present, leave your family, and go where I'll show you yourself. Doesn't mean you get rid of everything. It means that you're in control of the resources you were given. Because even the energies that you were given that seem to be negative are still energies, and they can be used for good. It says that when Shmuel Hanavi, he saw David, and he saw that he was all red and ruddy like Esav. He had like a bloodlust or something. He didn't want to anoint him, but he used it to fight the battles of Hashem. A person could have that blood thing and become a surgeon. They don't have to become a murderer. They become a shochet. So whatever you have, the Torah, and of course having a Rav and having these kind of conversations with each other, where we learn the most from each other, because since no two people are the same, in the end, you're going to have to make all of your own decisions. But by discussing things with a friend, you might get an aspect that even though they say it one way, you'll take it that you need it the way you need it. But most of the times when we have important things, we become the defense attorney and the prosecutor. Should I do this? I'm good here. I'm there. We need to be surrounded. Kani lecha chaver. You have to buy yourself a friend. Even if you have to pay someone to study Torah with, do it. And nasei lecha rav. Not only get yourself a rav, but make yourself a rav. In other words, find a way to access the good voice in you as well. That's being a rav. That's saying, well, I can learn how to think for myself a little bit better, and then I can check it out. Torah doesn't want us to, just depend totally on someone else, because in the moments of our life, we don't have time to ask everybody everything. But to be settled in life means you want your child to have the tools to deal with what they're going to come across in life. It's not that you want your child, of course we all do, we want them not to have to face anything, but they're going to go to school, they're going to meet other kids, there's bullies, there's this and that. You want them to have the sechel to how to deal and maneuver in each situation. Jacob wanted that, and it's funny, the Medrash makes fun of it, but in the end he was right. To be a settled person means that everything in your life is included in a certain way as part of one whole, which is called a certain oneness. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, that oneness. But it does not say Hashem Yachad. Yachad means oneness where there's nothing else. Echad is the first of numbers, Achash Taim Shlosh. That oneness exists within the diversity of life. So I give everybody a bracha that this Hanukkah should be illuminating for all of us. We should increase in light each day. Mylin B'Kodesh, we have a rule from Mishnah Shkolim. We should continue to increase. Don't do the same last week as you did this week. It's up to us to keep moving ahead. And hope everybody has a Freilich in Hanukkah. And we celebrate the military victories, but we celebrate the light. We celebrate that ineffable energy that our soul is connected to, that enables us to rise higher and higher, and not only to change, but to transform certain energies into positive energies. Everybody should have a good Shabbos and a Freilich and Hanukkah and a happy Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus. And this Phillip Namanworth, Creative Spirituality. We will see you again next week.
Every soul is a candle. Every soul is a candle of God, sent down to this world